Hey, welcome to KGRA Radio, basically digital broadcasting. This is episode number 4 of Into the Fire. We are live from Tulsa, Oklahoma, joined here in a little bit with Scott Wagner, retired detective from NYPD, and I'm super excited about today. Yes, you notice the Christmas tree behind me. I'm sorry, but hey, the way it rolls in this house is that's not up to me, and my wife loves it, and so we have to keep it for a little longer. And plus, I like the looks of it, so it's going to stay for it'll probably be gone in the next week or two, but we like to have it up for a little bit. So welcome, Ronnie. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've been busier than ever, and so I've been looking forward to this because actually this is kind of going to be a little moment of break for me. I've had a really super busy week, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Well, we caught a murder on the 1st, and so we're working that, and it's mine, and it's just been super busy. So that's what's up. Super excited about this guest. I'm super excited where we're at right now. We're at episode number 4. The numbers have been incredible. Just to remind people that you could sign up for the promo. You could actually get a promo code for this network, and there it is, DET White. And you basically get 30% off if you wished to sign up. And if you do that, what do you get out of the deal? You basically get to watch all of these videos from all of the shows, not just our show, but other shows, to include Wiretap that follows right behind us. That's a great show. It follows right behind us. It's a good one. I encourage you to check that out. But many other shows. And so that's great. So check it out if you're into it and you want to spend a little money and you want to get everything. You want to be like a VIP of KGRA. So that's great. Ronnie, anything going on this week for you?
Nothing major. My daughter just left today with a friend, went to Florida to go to Disney World.
Nice.
And yeah, it's really cold here in town this week. A little bit of snow on the car this morning, I noticed, but no, I mean just normal week.
Good.
I know you've been busy, like you said, and I'm sure, like normal, you're getting a lot of help from everyone in the squad and the warrant squad and Margot and everyone, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's always, if you're working with a team of people that you enjoy working with, it's not really work. So, but the when you work long hours, when you're my age, then it kind of wears on you. So
yeah,
I have to get a little bit more rest than I used to. This next guest, I got to tell you, matter of fact, I've got a couple of guests lined up later that we'll talk about later, but I'm starting to line them up. It's looking good. Super interesting people. This next guest, I just got to say this. I've never met him in person, but he's kind of like, I told you before, Ronnie, I spoke up in New York City recently, and I spoke up at it was basically the New York Association of Hostage Negotiators. And you have negotiators that show up, not just in New York City. I mean, I think there was 200 just New York City guys that were NYPD that attended this thing, but we also had another 150 from all over the country, Canada, some other countries. And it's just a star-studded all-star cast, including myself, of course, right? So I was one of the speakers. And anyway, it was just fantastic. Well, one of the things that I love about speaking up in the Northeast is that the cops from New York and up that way in the country, they treat you as if you have known them their whole lives. I mean, and I really, really wish there was more of that existed throughout the country. And they dress for success. These guys dress in suits everywhere they go. The detectives do. So you know who the detectives are. They actually dress like that all the time. And they're just super, super friendly, super great guys. I mean, I can't say enough about them. I'm a superhero of a lot of those guys up there in New York City. So this guy right here that we're going to have on is Scott Wagner. And he's a individual that worked, he came on, I'll let him tell a little bit about it here in a moment, but this guy actually responded to the 93 World Trade Center bombing. There's a picture of him back in the day. It looks like he's, back then they were able to wear a beard and stuff is what he's been telling me. But, and there he is. I mean, that's what everybody knows when they think New York City cop. And surprisingly, he only wore a uniform for 1 year, believe it or not. But he's just a fantastic guy. He's been on a lot of different shows, to include Fox News. He's kind of one of those talking heads that they call in, and they call him in for a reason because he knows what he is talking about. we often run across people that have talk, they talk the talk, right? But this guy actually walks the walk, and he's not one of those people that claims to have worked hundreds of murders. And you kind of sit there and scratch your head and wonder, did he really? I mean, this guy really did. And he was one of the responders to 9/11, and he worked a lot down there, etc. This guy has been all over. He was a member of the notorious, or not notorious, I think that's a bad word, actually. I don't know if that sounds good, but he was the prestigious is a better word, the prestigious Manhattan North Homicide Unit. In addition to that, one of the hostage negotiating team members of New York City. And I'm here to tell you that as a hostage negotiator, and from being a hostage/crisis negotiator myself, we are who the police call when the police need the police. So it's super important job, and I can't say enough about that. So I want to welcome Scott Wagner to the show, and there he is.
Hi, gentlemen.
Star,
Sir?
superstar. He's actually kind of a fan of ours. I don't know if we can say that.
I'm a big fan of both of you.
Thank you,
Jason,
sir.
you're in another realm of
yes,
detectives.
I love it. Yes. You're making me feel really good. And you are too.
That was a hell of a talk up. Boy, I was like, who are they talking about? They're not talking about me.
Let me tell you something. Scott is one of those guys, and I told him this last night, because we talked on the phone forever. And I told him this last night, is that he's kind of one of those people in my world that is like a sensei to me. I mean, he's like somebody that I know that I could call if I ever had a case and I needed to have some advice, and he would always be there for me. I have no doubt about it. And just one of those type of detectives that I have mad respect for. And Ronnie, if you want to know what that's like, it's like what Ronnie had for me back when he came into the unit, something along those lines.
I owe everything to Jason. He's just amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, I wish I could believe that. But anyway, so here we go. So Scott, how long were you on the police department with NYPD?
I did 23 years. My career was basically cut short. I mean, I could have done 20 and out. That's what we had at the time. 20 and out, and 62 and a half was the cutoff for your age. But 9/11 kind of put a damper on that. My son, my youngest, was born June 11th of that year. So I have a 3-month-old at home, and I know that I'm coming home contaminated. I know, I don't care what they said. We knew. We're not stupid. We knew what we're dealing with. And it became, believe it or not, too heavy a burden because I'd be gone 5 days at a clip, and you had to pack. Your uniforms, of course, were in your locker if you had to do some uniform work. But suits and ties, work clothes, you had to bring stuff with you, and depending upon where they sent you, if they sent you to the morgue or the landfill in Staten Island, then you would, or down at Ground Zero was, you're in work clothes. But if they sent you to interview victims' families, this is the time we had collection sites where they were collecting DNA and filling out forms. As detectives, we had it was basically a detective bureau operation because it was one big crime scene. So for a long time, the only non-detectives that we had in there were emergency service guys, what you would call SWAT. We call them emergency service in NYPD. Those are the ones who lost the most out of any, unit. Yeah, they were there, the full complement. But otherwise, it was all detectives. And then slowly they started, bringing in patrol officers to do work. And I mean, they had the perimeter. That was it. Mm-hmm. So then they brought them in later.
I can't imagine going through that. That site is. I've been to the museum, the memorial, a couple times, and it was weird, if that's a proper use of word. Even like little kids were behaving and not screaming and yelling. It was like there was just something about that place.
It's almost like church-like. It's church-like.
Yeah.
It's like you're in hollow ground.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I haven't been able to go to the museum.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I remember about 6 months after, my niece was up from Florida. She used to come because they end school earlier than us. So she used to come and stay Christmas with us and everything. And I brought her to the edge of the pit. You know, I was able to get her through and brought her right to the edge of the pit. And she just stood there and just bursted out crying, you know. And I think till this day, she has her sneakers and everything in some garbage bag. So I said, get rid of that stuff already. Lord knows, it glows in the dark. But no,
So
I
I think
haven't been able to go to the museum. And
I
they
think
want
that
cops to pay. That's another thing. It's like,
really,
yeah,
that's kind of
you
crazy.
can't even, you know, tin your way in, so to speak. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
one of the things that a lot of people don't really realize is that when you came on in the academy back, and you said, what year was it that you came on?
81.
Yeah, and I don't know if they still do
Well,
this or not.
I started my law enforcement career in 79, but I came on as I was a narcotic investigator with Health and Hospital Corporation in New York. It's who runs all the city hospitals. But yeah, I did that for 2 years, and then while waiting to come on the police department.
So when you sign up for the police department, if I'm not, and I don't know if they still do this today, but when you are in the police academy, you don't necessarily know which branch of policing you're going to go to.
At the time, there were 3 different departments. You had NYPD, of course, the largest. Then you had transit police, which were maybe 7 to 7,500, and then the housing police, which were 2,500 to 3,000 uniform numbers. And each, again, same training. Now, when you would go into the academy, they would say, you PD, you know, like 3 NYPD, you transit, you housing. You know, that's how they would do it. There's a civil service newspaper in New York called The Chief, and I would get it because I was taking all the tests back then, state police, you know, you name it. And I even scored high in the fire department. And I walked out because the day I took the physical, a guy dropped dead, and he was a Green Beret. So I said, I'm out of here. But there was a little blurb in the newspaper because, again, back then there were minority quotas and there were actual minority lists, which I think is, personally, it should have been illegal. Because if you score a 95 and Ronnie scores a 95.5, he gets called first, then you get called. But it shouldn't be that you had a list for Hispanics, a list for Black, and a list for white. And that's how it was. So what they would do is they would have what's called a 1 in 3. So for every 3 non-minorities, 1 minority had to go. So for instance, the closest minority might have been 15 points less than, let's say you get called, Jason. Now you're the last non-minority. Now it's Ronnie's turn to go, but they have to call a minority before him. He might be a quarter of a point away from you. But now they picked someone maybe 10 points lower. And that's the way it went. And in my instance, there was a little article that said the housing police department was looking to put in a non-minority class because their quota was filled. So my class went in, and we were the actual last New York City Housing Authority Police Department Academy class. Okay? Same training as NYPD and trans, same exact training, same status, same pay everything across the board, the benefits. But my class was 55 people, 5 women, 2 Black guys, no Hispanics. And again, I knew some people in housing, so it helped. And it was a much smaller department. You know, NYPD back in the day, 40,000 guys.
Right.
So, you know,
largest in the world.
You can know people, but it's mine. I don't think guys like you could even comprehend the bureaucracy of a department like that.
No.
We think it's crazy with 800 people here. It seems crazy to us at times.
Now, mind you, just the housing police, we were the 24th largest department in the country.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the housing police.
That was, housing. Transit was like the 6th, the 7th with 7,500 members.
Well, let me ask you this, Scott. I mean, if you're standing there in line, do they still do it that way today, to an extent?
No. Now the transit in '95, Giuliani merged everything into one police department. We were against it mostly because we were fine doing what we were doing. Crime was down. We had specialized units forming. We were really, guys would move up quicker through the ranks. And again, it was everyone knew everybody. Then suddenly you're scattered to the winds. They made bureaus within the NYPD. There's a transit bureau and there's a housing bureau now. So which means the people of public housing get grossly cheated, as do the people that use mass transit are grossly cheated. Because they're not getting that personal coverage anymore.
So when you were out there and you're sitting there in line and they're picking, you're going to the PD,
right.
You're going to housing.
Oh, a lot of guys cried.
Oh, that's what I was getting at. Is that was there some guys going, "Hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a housing guy. I want to be NYPD."
Absolutely. Until they got there, did the work, and realized, oh man, this is a lot better than my counterparts. The stories I'm hearing at the bar.
Yeah. Was there a process to switch over if you wanted to? Was there a process?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a funny example. My partner, who, I had like 4 great partners as a detective, one-on-one partners. But my last partner, he and I were in the same academy class, so we knew each other from day one, and we went to the same place for field training. Then he went to another area to work. I stayed in Spanish Harlem. We got back together again in plain clothes, then back together again in the detective bureau. So we worked together for about 18 years altogether, on and off.
Nice.
But he left housing and went back to over to NYPD, went through all the field training again, lasted about 6 months and said, I'm out of here, and came back to housing. And then in '95, they merged everything. So now we're all back in NYPD again. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So you got lost in the system, basically.
So you started off doing that, and then at some point in time, they merged all you guys together, right? Something like that. What you're talking about? You kind of fell into that.
95.
And did you first start out in what other kind of specialty units did you work in before you made it to homicide? You didn't just go straight to homicide.
I was in homicide in housing.
Okay.
See, that was the thing. We had our own detective bureau. We were independent police department. We had everything. We had full detective bureau, patrol bureau, support services bureau. We had everything. Only on a smaller scale. I mean, we only had 250, working detectives. And maybe 30 bosses in the detective bureau at the time. So you knew every detective in the city, for housing. And again, when we worked homicides, the homicides were worked out of the local NYPD precinct of occurrence. And we just had a master book, basically who caught last. Did NYPD make the collar last, or did we do it last? Now, there were times when we'd make the collar and we'd work jointly together with, our NYPD counterparts, because basically they were responsible for everything in the city, regardless of if it was housing or transit. So maybe the guy didn't want to stay up for 3 days, so he didn't want to take the collar. So we might have taken 2 or 3 collars in a precinct in a row. But that's just paperwork. But the working on the cases was, we were running constantly. In
did
those
you work
days,
well with them?
I'm sorry?
Did you guys collaborate with either the transfer, the NYPD guys? And
for homicides and serious, like sex crimes or whatever, you had to work along with your NYPD counterparts. Okay, as did transit. But they loved it when it was a housing homicide, because we'd show up with manpower. and no one cut our overtime, and we'd have resources.
Yeah.
Because we were federally accredited. So we got a lot of toys and little things to play, like we had night vision in the early 90s.
Nice.
And we had, these camera setups. Like, you ever see the cameras with the lenses like this, the side of football games? Every detective squad had one. I mean, we had ballistic lasers we were trained in. That if you had a shot fired through a window, and you had a BIM in the wall, that all you had to do, it looked like a child's telescope. All you had to do was put it in between the hole in the window and the BIM in the wall. And basically it had a little rifle scope that you aimed it through the hole in the window and just turned it on. And wherever that laser beam went, which went out to infinity, that's where that shot came from.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what we've got.
You could testify to it. We got warrants behind that. But they stole all that stuff as soon as it emerged.
Let me tell you what we've got now, Scott. That it's gonna blow your mind. They've got machines that literally can scan everything and measure everything inside of that space.
Yeah,
and they can do it. Yeah, they can do it in 15 minutes, and it measures everything. And then literally, they're actually developing 3D goggles that theoretically a jury could wear as they're sitting in a jury in the jury box and watch as they walk through the crime scene.
Wow.
And just another thing, just to give people an idea as to where we're going, is that by the year 2027, we're mandated in the state of Oklahoma, and I'm sure it's going to be everywhere. And that is that they can literally take a hand scanner and scan a blood trail on the ground and tell the person's DNA and compare that. And then compare that with somebody that's in an interview room, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around that anyway. I'm still like,
mind blowing.
Does that really exist? You know what I mean? So it's crazy how things have passed on.
Once again, the NYPD, as advanced as they are, look, they only in the last year and a half have they started a drone program. I mean, yeah, we have an unbelievable aviation unit, and they have the FLIR and all of that, but NYPD is always a bit of a step behind. Like when I was active, the internet was there, but we didn't have internet access in the precinct. We used to have to call people in the press to, do us a favor. Can you run this guy? Can you run a check on this guy? We had no internet access.
That brings me to where I was going to ask.
We had the NYPD databases and DMV. That was it.
That's crazy.
Nowadays, there's just so much video evidence that we deal with, and something that I was hoping you could give us, and I guess the listeners also, just like the Reader's Digest of, and I've heard detectives that I've worked with back in the day talking about back in your days. I mean, how the heck were they solving these things? We're always looking for videos and phones and this. And
I had the statute of limitations is long over. I had mentioned to Jason that I only had, I worked on 2 cases with video.
Yeah.
One is a highly publicized case. That the other one was not publicized, and the highly publicized case is that I shot a Netflix special. I'm still wondering when it's coming out, but there's 5 episodes that take place in New York, and one of them is this episode. It was a deli called the Carnegie Deli, and there were 5 shot, 3 dead above this deli. It's like a tenement building, but the deli was a New York fixture for years. It just recently closed. I think COVID shut it down.
Okay.
But in that case, it wasn't even. We were called in to assist because you had 5 shot. Like I said, 3 are dead, 2 are likely. It's really all hands on deck. So we went from Manhattan North Homicide down. We went to the south to assist. Besides the precinct detectives, and they called in other detectives from other commands. So I happened to find a video camera at the location that was almost hidden, that the owner of the place was using to track his girlfriend because he didn't trust her. So we found it by accident. I saw a wire. I was like, where is this going? And it was a false ceiling, a drop ceiling. I found it, and sure enough, you see the perps coming out, and the guy puts his hand smack down on the top of the banister.
Nice.
So it's like we guard the spot. We call crime scene back, to take the prints off of that, and we had a guy standing by, in latent print. See, that's what happens when the NYPD, when it's a press case, and again, I'm retired. I could say what I want.
Hey, Scott, you're retired. We're not.
Yeah, I know. Well,
don't trap us.
I'm not talking about what goes on in Tulsa. I'm talking about what goes on in New York City.
No, I hear you, buddy.
Unless you're of a certain color or it happens in a certain area, you get virtual little press, and the less press you get, the less manpower you get to work the case, and that's a damn shame. And that is something, especially with missings, that you see all over the country.
Yeah,
I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children of color that are missing, and nobody's looking for them. But once little Katie goes missing, it's all on News Nation and this and that, and everyone's covering it, and it gets a little ridiculous. But in my cases, having worked mostly in what were considered ghetto neighborhoods or whatever, listen, that's why I always, we have the saying, I'm sure you guys have heard it, in homicide you work for God. That saying was started by this guy Vernon Gebert.
Yeah, Vernon.
And Vernon was a retired NYPD lieutenant, commander of Bronx homicide. I was very fortunate to attend his class early on as a detective.
Me as well. Did you run it?
I've been to it as well.
The guy, you didn't go to lunch. You stayed there for the good stuff during lunch. Yeah. But he wrote the Bible on it, practical homicide investigation.
I've had a few drinks with him. Good guy.
Oh, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. He taught us about nothing. This is what stuck with me. Nothing is as it seems. In other words, have an open mind when you go in on a homicide scene. A homicide could be a suicide. A suicide could be a natural. It's not always as it seems, and you're working for God. So, in other words, you're allowed to deviate from the book, but you have to know the book to deviate from the book. Mm-hmm. As long as you can jump back from that gray area, and because, again, you're working for someone who can't speak for himself. And in NYPD, again, I had cases, very horrible cases that occurred just 8 blocks out of the realm of the media, Yeah. So instead of a task force of 25 to 50 detectives right from day one, it was my partner and I for over a year.
Yeah, which really goes to, that really tells me even more about you, is that you're able to, I think you've mentioned this in your bio, is that you solved 95% of your cases, which is extraordinary. And I want to mention this, is that you had a 100% success rate in court.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. And I got to say, this is all due to the men and women I work with. None of this is alone. None of this is done alone. You guys know that.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work.
I mean, one guy might come up with, I've had guys that just stepped out of the bathroom and just walked into an ongoing conversation and suddenly said, yeah, but what about, and next thing you know, that's where the case went. I mean, sometimes it's just fresh eyes or, a fresh viewpoint. That's why I was fortunate.
You had a lot of success with some cold cases too, right?
Yeah.
The thing that always, before you talk about the cold case, that's something that always surprised me, and Jason can talk about it a little bit from personal experience, just all the teaching he's done all over North America. But from our bosses to the administration, they were always super supportive of us. If we needed stuff, there was no issues with overtime. I remember one time the chief came through when Jason and I were talking about a witness in Colorado, and he was like, well, go get Joe's P card and fly out there and talk to him. So, and then the reason I say that is it surprised me when Jason would come back from school and hearing, hey, in this town or this city, whatever, they take the murder for their shift and then they hand it off to someone else, and they wonder why their rates are so low.
Again, going back to, I'm going to say what, my heyday, which was, the mid 90s, we were close to 3,000 murders. I don't know. I think it was 92 or 93.
Yeah.
Which is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And our detective chart, we work 4 on, 2 off. Unless you're a house mouse, then you get to do, have weekends off or something. But real detectives work a 4 and 2 chart. So your days off change every week.
Okay.
Unless you're in a specialized unit, or you're in a task force or something, then the hours are what they are. Because we've all done marathons, I'm sure, 72 hours, you don't know if you're coming or going, and then when you finally get home, you can't go to sleep because you're so wired up.
Mm-hmm.
But we did tons of those. But again, it was not unheard of to, in your 4 tours that you were working, to catch 2 or 3 murders.
Yeah.
And they start kind of blending into one another. It's like names start, wait a minute, I know that name. Which case is it from? Is it from Jones' case? Is it from the Brown case? Is it from the Smith case? You start losing it, and you got to take a breath, walk away. But again, having worked at those paces with the pressures on us, we were forced to be better. And also, again, I'm speaking as the housing police at the time. We were working out of the NYPD precincts on these cases. We weren't in our own office. So basically, you had a briefcase that was your little office on the go, and we had to make sure, as guests in someone else's house, so to speak, that our work was better. And I'm not putting any NYPD detectives down, okay? Because I've worked with guys in all over the world that were empty suits, and I worked with guys all over the world and all over the country that were dogged detectives, that I'd work with any day, I'd go to war with any day. It's, that's just how it is. But we had to make sure our work, all our I's were dotted, all our T's were crossed. None of our paperwork, we couldn't afford to have any of our paperwork kicked back by a boss, by a supervisor. Who said, why didn't you do this? Why did you leave this out? Why did you omit that? And make you do it again. No, we couldn't afford that. Yeah. So our stuff had to be that much better. We had to be that much more sharp. We couldn't relax. So, and of course, because we had the joint manpower of the NYPD guys and the housing guys together, the solvability rate went through the roof. Because as you both know, the right manpower and resources, you could solve 98% of cases. Yeah, you're going to have your 2% mystery shootings, serial killer, or, some stray round that went, 3 or 4 blocks. Yep. You're going to have that. But and I know, you got the right amount of resources and manpower.
Yeah.
You can solve everything. And that's how it worked for cold cases as well. We had, because we were federally accredited, we got money from a program called CATCH. CATCH was an acronym for Concerted Attack to Clear Homicides, some federal thing. And they gave us $1 million a year at the time. And this is in the maybe 95, 96. It's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So you can and they had to submit cases that had a solvability factor. In other words, maybe had there been enough detectives working at the time, the case would have been solved. So you're going through folders, pulling these cold cases. What about this one? What about that one? Yeah, people could still be around for that one. Yeah. And we went out and basically reworked the case. But you would do minimum one of your days off a month, and then a minimum of 4 hours before your shift and 4 hours after your shift. So you're getting a minimum of 16 hours overtime a month. And it doesn't count these regular overtime because it's coming from this federal money. And then NYPD wanted to jump in with us. So they made some allowances. And we started banging them out right and left. And that's one of the reasons we had such success. And again, I've never, all due to my partners, all due to the guys and girls I worked with, all due to that. I mean,
now,
you're only as good as your team and
you
your
told
boss.
me,
And your
well,
boss.
yeah. And what was the last part? And your what?
And your boss, your supervisor.
Well,
The
yeah.
boss.
I mean, you can't. Yeah, no, of course you can't.
We've had, I'm sure you guys.
I'm not getting into that.
Supervisor who was never a detective or
well, I don't know about that.
Detective squad, and he's a lieutenant now. And he's trying to tell you, you have like 20 years in homicide. He's trying to tell you what to do.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that. I just for the record, I never mentioned that to you, Scott, about anything.
You don't have to. It's the nature of the beast. You don't have to.
Hey, listen, I'm just curious real quick. All right, so just briefly, I want you to tell me real quick because I don't want to miss the boat on this, but you became a crisis negotiator, hostage negotiator. It's called different. You guys are really the New York model is you guys were like the originators of the hostage negotiating team.
In 72.
That's right. You're number one, right? The first place. Am I right? The very first place ever. And so, of course, if you haven't watched the movie Dog Day Afternoon, that's kind of a
there's a movie called oh my God, because our motto was "Talk to Me," as you have on your shirt.
Yep.
That's what our motto is. But there's a movie by Dr. Harvey Schlossberg, who was the co-founder with Frank Boltz. Harvey was a patrol cop. He was a traffic cop who happened to be a psychologist. And they used his input, and it started the hostage negotiation team. He's the one who said, why don't you try getting to the root of the problem before you just go in there kicking down doors and, throwing tear gas. And the movie is
why did you want to do?
I can't recall at the moment. Dr. Harvey Schlossberg, he's deceased now. They did a movie which is it's like an homage to the hostage team. It's fantastic. It shows the whole start of it.
And you told me something last night too. You told me about a movie that if you wanted to see a movie about basically the blueprint of homicide investigation from what was it, 1945?
1948.
Oh, 48.
Naked
City. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Amanda, throw up some pictures of him when he was working as a cop because I don't want to miss out on that. Not only did you work as a cop, I mean, those are freaking awesome. I love those.
Yeah, that's in 81.
So and I just what's this all about?
Later on, just getting an award. That's later on as a detective. And like I said, that was the first press picture I had. These kids we rescued.
That's cool. And I love these too. And we're not throwing these in here to know about the stories, but it's just because I thought they look like it makes him look like just a freaking he just looks like a super detective, you know what I mean? Just what you would imagine. And so what would be
I was never mistaken for an insurance salesman.
No.
And it's funny. That's my partner on the left of the photo. My right, in the photo. Not in the center, the one on the left. He was my last partner. But that was the last picture of me in uniform. It was a good run. It was a good run. But again, NYPD detectives, people have their concept of a detective is what they see on television or in the movies. So basically the case could be solved in 45 minutes with commercials, and how is it done? I'm a detective. That's how it's done. The people you say, how do you know that? No, I'm a detective. I'm sure you guys have said that, or they'd ask you your first name. And I wouldn't tell anyone my first name. I'm not getting intimate with you. If I was doing a hostage job, that's different. But, just in an interview, what's my first name? Detective. I mean, and there's a mystique about NYPD detectives. I mean, you're going back to Kojak days. There's a mystique about it. You dressed a certain way. You wore a good watch. You carried a good pen. You didn't have your business cards just in your jacket pockets or wherever looking for a business card. You carried a card case, which only holds about maybe 5 cards. Yeah, so you'd refill the card case from your pocket when no one's looking. But there was a mystique. For instance, I'll give you a quick little anecdote. I never had a cup of coffee in my life. Can't stand it. Can't stand the smell of it. Okay, so
I'm with you on that.
it's one of those things. My caffeine was Diet Pepsi or Diet Coke. So you know how you're all out of the crime scene. Everybody's got that standard, New York City plastic cup with the top broken off so you can drink out of. Well, I had a bunch of empties. And when my partner would go into the store to get coffee or whatever, or whoever made the coffee run, get me a Diet Pepsi. And I'd go in the car and pour the Diet Pepsi. A lot of guys thought I was pouring liquor into the cup, And I'd be pouring the Diet Pepsi into the cup so I wouldn't look out of place, amongst the guys, because there's a mistake. There is a definite mistake about it,
Is that still the case now?
Say what?
Going with how Jason talked about the academies, but still that same way with the detectives nowadays?
What, as far as what? Well,
the mystique, the way they dress
down a little. The dress codes have gone down a little because they provided everyone with a vest to wear, because a detective had gotten shot. It was friendly fire, but still shouldn't have happened. Had he been wearing a vest, he would have probably lived. So they, again, NYPD closing the barn door after the horse gets out. Every detective had to be issued a new vest. And it had to say police on the front and detective bureau on the back with detective shield on it and the whole bit. So you're supposed to wear that when you go out to crime scenes or you're canvassing or whatnot. We all had vests, but we never took the vests unless we were going to go get somebody.
Yeah.
We didn't wear vests just to knock on doors. I mean, it's a different world, which I understand. But if you see any walkouts, any pictures of any walkouts, or whether it's video or stills, detectives are always in suits and ties.
Yeah.
Hey, let me. I want to remind you of something real quick to mention briefly on the walkouts, which he's talking about. Basically, when they walk the prisoner to the police car,
and drive off into the sunset.
Yeah, but tell
always ask them. They always invite. Why did you do it?
Yeah, no, I hate that.
He mumbles something stupid.
Yeah, but when you said that, so what kind of car were they getting in?
We was, again, all these walkouts, this stage, there's no lying about it. It's a stage thing. So we had our car parked in front of the precinct, with a guy behind the wheel, the doors open, ready to just stick the perp in the back seat. My partner go around one side, I go around the other, we drive off. The chief of detectives happened to be there, and he started screaming and raving. Goes, stop everything! What are you doing? Get that car out of here! It was a 1989 Chevy Caprice with no floor. It had cardboard on the floor, just so pebbles wouldn't hit you in the crotch when you were driving by. Not for heat or anything, and we tried to kill this car. Couldn't get a new car until that car was like deemed, a death trap by the department. So they kept fixing it. It just kept coming. The engine was a testimony to that make a car.
Yeah,
but couldn't kill it. It was a tank. Couldn't kill it, and we couldn't. But he made us use his car, the chief of detectives' car, which was a brand new, couple of week old car. And we drove about 6 blocks away, and someone had to follow with our car, and we had to do like a prisoner swap out of sight of the chief. And he was so upset, he made his driver clean the back seat. I mean, it was, it was really funny. It was very funny, but that's the way.
Well, listen, in 5 minutes or less, What is your advice for young detectives or people getting into this business? What is the biggest advice that you could give to them? And maybe something that you would like to see changed that for the better.
Well, again, I have my oldest son is on, and there's no more real career path to detective as there was, like when I came through. I'd like to see that changed again. The other is to a young detective, keep your mouth shut and latch on to those senior guys. I did it, and I have a big mouth. I shut up and I watched these guys intently. Every time they did interviews, I was at the one-way glass looking in. I mean, I stole from everyone. Look, you all develop your own techniques of interview and interrogation. You go to courses and whatnot. You know, you learn body language. You learn certain things. Yeah, certain things can be taught, but nothing can replace being in that interview room.
Mm-hmm.
And because you never know what's going to come out of someone's mouth. And you never know how you're going to have to extract that information. And again, you can learn so much just by staying with a senior guy for an entire day, watching him go about his business or her going about her business. You'll learn more than any classroom in a month. So that's my advice. Again, even to any cops coming on job, keep your mouth shut, do what you're told, and watch. Keep your eyes and ears open. You know, experience things and always treat people with kindness. Kill them with kindness, because you treat people the way you'd want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And you get, believe me, a lot more comes out of it.
I'll tell you something. When you say that, Scott, I think of my dad. I've probably mentioned this to Ronnie 50 times. And my dad had 2 rules that he told me. The number 1 rule is every time I went to a new unit, he was like, shut the F up.
Exactly.
You don't know what you're doing. Listen to those that have been there before you, et cetera, et cetera. And the second rule, which I think is almost probably more important, actually, and that was he told me, he goes, hey, listen, that badge that they issued it to you, make sure that it's the same size it was the day they issued it to you, not 5 sizes too big, meaning treat people right. You know what I mean? Right. So it's exactly what you're talking about, and I love that.
Yeah, and no matter what ethnicity, where they stand, you know, economically, because I had days where 1 minute, one hour, I'm talking to someone who had a Stradivarius violin stolen, and 20 minutes later, I'm on a project rooftop with a junkie that, you know, overdosed. So that's the way Manhattan is, and you have the richest of the rich, a stone's throw away from the poorest of the poor, and you have to be able to get your point across to both, and you have to be able to listen to both, and that's how I got into the hostage team. Basically, I put my nose in something I shouldn't have been. I was nosy, and there was a barricade job going on, and I walked up and said I would talk to the guy. So that's how we got out. And the CEO of the hostage team said, you know, be in my office Tuesday. And that's how I got in, based on that, because I wasn't afraid to talk to anybody.
And that's something that I love that Jason does it great. I felt like I was fairly good at it in the day. Was despite all this technology that we're dealing with nowadays, still, in my opinion, the most important thing is just talking to people, like you guys have said. And you have to be able to do that, or otherwise you're going to be stuck.
Again, you go out, you have to be able to also size people up. You go out on a canvas, and you know, and I know, you've gone to crime scenes. There's 100 people standing behind the tape. You know, half of them know what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
But do they want to talk to you? No. So you have to learn to look into the crowd and see who's got that look on their face of, you know, so you walk by, and as you walk by them, you drop a business card on the floor, see if they'll pick it up.
Yep.
You know, things of that nature. And you go around handing out flyers, and you hand them out to everybody. So you're not singling any one person out. And you make a lot of eye contact. You know who's going to call you and who's not, who's going to show up to talk to you. And that's
sometimes the flyers get burned up, right, Jason? But you know, they're helpful also.
Scott, I got to tell you this real quick. So, thinking
Sure.
outside of the box, etc. We had a murder where this guy ended up just getting lit up in this car, and there was there was probably 100 people that were watching this, and he was kind of an OG in the Hoover Crips. Anyway, I came up with this brilliant idea that I thought, I'm gonna come up with this flyer and put it up there on both sides of this memorial that they'd stapled to the fence. They had some Hennessy, candles lit up, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I took a couple of pictures. And then at the bottom of this thing, I thought I was going to be really creative and slick. I wrote down my phone number at the bottom of this thing. It was the tackiest thing ever. But I wrote my phone number like it was hanging in the laundromat. And I even ripped off a few of them to make it look like people were calling tips. And then and literally Roddy and I had drove right around the corner. Actually, we went around the block and came back and the things were ripped off. And all of my business cards were gone and stuff. And so we tried to do it a little bit classier thereafter and had some respect for the people and put it out further and made a nice, not a prison photo on the flyer. We tried to get a nice photo, etc. But listen. Well,
one thing I also recommend, and this is what I did in every one of my homicide cases, I went to the funeral and or wake of every one of my victims.
Wow. Okay.
Whether I was on duty or off duty. 2 reasons. One, you don't know this person in life. You only know them in death. So it's just paying respects. The other is showing the family solidarity. That even though drug dealer A killed drug dealer B in this particular instance, you're still going to work the case. No matter what color or nationality your kid is, we're still going to be there to work the case. And also I made a practice of asking the family if I could have a copy of the wake book after it was done, because you'd be surprised how many names and addresses you get out of a wake book. And a lot of times perpetrators do return. That it's they're stupid. Otherwise we'd never have jobs.
I love it, Scott. We got to cut it short. I'm going to tell you right now, the people don't realize that we have just scratched the surface with you. I mean, there's so much stuff that we could have talked about, and I've actually learned a handful of things just sitting here listening to you. Well, and I'm seriously, and I the next time if you're here in Tulsa, I might just have to take you on a ride along on a murder with me, and we can just work it together. Well, and I'm serious.
Not to diss Tulsa, but the odds of me showing up in Tulsa just like that are going to be slim to none.
Okay.
But I will take you up on that invitation.
All right, right on. I love it. So, Amanda, throw my contact information up. If anybody wants to reach out to, pass along and, message to him directly, they can certainly get in touch with me, and you can follow me on all those deals. I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in to our episodes. It's just been great. We've got some phenomenal guests that are lined up, and I think that this is just fantastic. I'm going to a little shout out to Canada, I know that, that's trying to be funny, but I know that there's a lot of Canada people that wanted me to acknowledge them. Yes, we know you're watching. We love you up in Canada. And, what do you think, Ronnie? I think he's a superstar for sure. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
Great to talk to you. And
great to talk to you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And I'm no superstar, just a working detective.
Drinks are on me, Scott. The next time I'm in New York City, we're getting together. And that is a promise.
Pal. I heard that before, so.
It's going to happen. I promise. It's happening. All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight. Ronnie, do you have any final words?
Nope. We appreciate everyone showing up. I guess I did. Yeah. We appreciate everyone listening in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. We've hit the 54-minute mark. We got to run. I'll tell you about the next guest probably in the next day or two. You guys stay safe. Thank you for tuning in. It means the world. And we'll catch you the next time.
Thank you, gentlemen.